narcissism is not okay because it won't get better. Once you're in an abusive relationship, once you're dealing with narcissist, he is trying to put you down. And it may not even be on purpose, but a narcissist just can't say sorry, can't admit to being wrong. So don't count on it that it goes better, because that means that they have to be able to actually empathize with you, understand what's going on in your mind. And when they can't, it's not going to happen. So today we are going to talk about narcissism and why it's not okay. Unfortunately, in the last couple of days, I have been talking to loads of people who have been dealing with narcissists and came out. Well, one is coming out stronger, but isn't there just yet. The other one is still in the midst of a battle. And then we have Joe, and Joe actually has come out so much stronger because you have had your fair share of narcissism. So I want to uh, I want to give three statements, and I want to ask you to tell a little bit about your story whenever you hear that statement, unless you want to say something first.
No, it's okay. You go ahead. I'll reply.
Okay,
Yeah.
it never gets better.
No, unfortunately, people with narcissism, unfortunately, no, they don't get better. They can sometimes get help, seek help out, and you really, really need a lot of help to actually help them deal with what they do. But not many people do seek help, which unfortunately is sad for people like me because we're the ones that get the end of it, the brunt of it all. And unfortunately, it's one of those things that people like me and many others have put up with it. As to say, put up with it, it's not really put up with it, it's living with it. It can be very, very traumatizing, not just for me. If you've got children involved, that's worse because they're being traumatized and they're at a young age. So that trauma is going to carry with them the rest of their lives, which isn't a good thing, which we know because children, people say children are resilient, but they're not always resilient. They might be resilient in certain things, yes, but when they see things like that, that is a trauma. And unfortunately, some kids grow up and do exactly the same, which is pretty sad because they think that's the normal way of treating people because it's not just women, men abuse as well from narcissists. So, it's, any child can grow up and think, well, that's what my father or my mother did. So I'm going to do the same. I'm going to treat my man or my woman the same. Why not? Because my dad did or my mum did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the second thing I wanted to talk about. Your children will be influenced, and it's either because they think it's normal, so they put
Yeah.
up with the abuse themselves. It could be that they actually become the abuser, not because they don't feel for other people, but that's the way they've seen mommy
Yeah.
treated daddy that way, or daddy treated mama that
Yeah.
way.
So they think it's normal. Yeah. They think it's a normal way of living. So,
Yeah.
and they're like, well, and when they question, well, my mum did it to my dad or my dad did it to my mum, so why can't I do it? And it is
So
a
you
sad thing.
actually have to well, you have one teenage daughter. Well, she's adolescent, a little
Yeah.
under 20, and one here's in her 20s. Um, what would you say when, I mean, you know that you have tried to protect your daughter from seeing the abuse, experiencing the abuse, but also um, ever dealing with a narcissistic partner. So, what would you say? Do you think that that's possible? What are your experience up till now?
Well, luckily, my children wasn't around to see the abuse because obviously I would have had a little boy, but unfortunately, because of the abuse, I had to give birth at 8 months and my little boy died. So I've never had that. And in one way, I really am gutted because it was a child, but in other ways, I'm thinking, would I have wanted him to live through and watch me being abused?
Yeah, that's
You
so true.
know, so with my own children, especially my girls, I've always like, and my son as well, I've always said, like, I've always said to them, I explained to them what happened to me. I thought because they got a right, because obviously they knew they had a brother and they wanted to know what happened. So, as I think Taylor was about 11, 12. I thought, well, she's a bit more mature. I mean, some people think, oh, maybe you should tell them when they're like about 5 or 6. And I'm thinking, well, I don't really want to put that into their little minds at that age because they've not seen it. They're not going through it. So I left it to Taylor was about 12. And then I sat them down, my eldest two, and, I explained to them like what happened to their brother and the abuse, like saying how wrong it is for somebody, it doesn't matter whether it's a woman or man, whether they start mentally saying cruel things to you, threatening you, and then start, all it takes is just one slap. That's all it takes. Because once you get one and you stick around, that will go further. It will carry on and on and on. And I've drummed it into them, said, if ever, no matter who, hit you once, you walk out that door. You stand your ground, you walk out that door. You
Yeah,
hold your head up high. Do not stick around for it. You walk out. You dare ever say, okay, I forgive you. I said, because they will never stop.
and don't
That would
believe
just be
them.
the start. And don't believe what they say because a
I love
narcissist,
you. That's
yeah,
yeah,
that is just a way of getting into your head to make you feel guilty. And no, it's
yeah,
really not worth it. Just, I know you might think you love this person and you think that, oh my God, if I leave this person and I'm going to have, no, don't put any of that in your head because it's not true. Because there's always a better life out there.
absolutely. So, for those who are wondering, hey, you were talking about narcissism, and now all of a sudden we're talking about abuse. In case you missed the very few sentences, this is about people who want to be in control, and they do it by using words, and sometimes they also do it by using their hands or whatever is available. Some people, they get outburst and they smash all the windows. That's basically if you're lucky. Some are not physical abusive, but they know how to.
Verbal, yeah, they know if it's verbal abuse.
It's
Yeah.
verbal abuse, which also leads me to the third thing, which is you run the risk of believing it's you. So keep in mind that when we're talking, I'm talking to the audience now, Joe, that when we are talking about narcissists, they don't know how to say sorry. So there are a few things that where you can recognize those people. They don't say sorry. They will tell you it's your fault. You made them do it. And that's where the danger is, in them telling you it's you. And because they want to be in control, they're very manipulative. They they're often very clever and very charming, and that's why people usually don't notice it. So, do you want to get in first into you're on the risk of believing it's you, or do you want to comment on what I said about them being very charming at first?
Um, being charming, they act like they make you believe. They sort of, when they do something, like my ex, when he verbally either mouth verbally or hit me, after it'd be, but you know I do love you. You know I really love you, and I didn't mean it. I was just so angry, and you really made me angry, even though it wasn't me. But as they're telling you that, you're thinking, oh well, maybe I was a bit harsh, or maybe it was me, because the way they do it, it's they charm their way through to you to make you think that you're the one that's wrong, and it isn't you, it's them. But the way they do it is the charm. They bring the charm on, and it makes you feel like you're the guilty one, but you're not. And that's how they worm their way around. They just really sort of do it in a way to make you think, oh my God, yeah, well, it was me then. I was wrong. And I love him so much. And they're very clever at what they do. Very, very clever. Very clever at manipulating. Very, very good at it.
Yeah, I do believe that some actually believe that it's not them because they are not capable of any
Mm.
reflection.
But they're too scared to say
Yeah,
because they're frightened. Because when they can threaten you, they can threaten you with all sorts of things, even though you know you're right, but you're too scared because of the threats they give you.
yeah, and
And when they
actually,
threaten you like that, it is scary. It is very,
yeah,
very, very, very frightening.
and I guess the mere fact that they are threatening you actually gives it all away because no person in their right mind would threaten you for any
No,
reason whatsoever.
exactly, exactly.
I mean, a relationship is about giving and taking, but it's building together. And
Yeah,
yes, we might not be experts when it comes to communication, listening to what the other wants, but you never, ever get threatened by your other half.
no, not like that. No.
Yeah. So going back to the children, this, of course, is the whole thing. When you've got parents who are narcissist or dealing with traits which portray narcissist, they might threaten you too. They might threaten the children, say, "You watch out because otherwise," um, and even worse. I mean, it might be again, it might be physical because they say, "Well, I'm going to toughen you up," but it also might be mental abuse. I mean, not talking to someone, ignoring them,
Because
pretending they don't
actually,
exist, shutting them.
ment yeah, mental abuse is actually worse than physical. Because physical, your body can heal, but mental abuse, you can't.
Yeah,
And it's
and that's
sometimes worse than physical
yeah, that's true.
because it stays in your head. It's there. Whereas bruises, they can go. I've had broken ribs. I've had broken jaw. They disappear. But up in here, no, that will be there for the rest of your life to the day you die.
Yeah,
You can't get rid of that.
yeah, And that's one of the reasons why I tell people speak up, and speak out. So this is not necessarily about saying to the person who does it, no, of course it does, because it's all about standing up to the partner, even though it's very scary. But it starts, um, unless of course that with that first slap you already say no. But say that you haven't said no and you give the other person another chance, then it starts by actually talking to other people and saying, this is not good. I am
Yeah.
scared this is happening. And they are threatening to, well, take children away, maybe hurt parents. What were you threatened with?
I was threatened. Well, the first threaten I had was to kill my baby when I was about 4 months pregnant. Um, he'd throw things at me deliberately to hit my stomach, and then it'd be like, "Oh no, I wasn't throwing it at you. No, you just stood there. Oh, blah blah. I would never hurt our baby, you know." And then obviously it got to the point where he did eventually do that, and it's in a way that it's then after all that it'd be when I lost the baby, because I actually had to go to hospital on my own. I had nobody there. He didn't even turn up either. He wasn't even there. And I remember the nurse seeing that she could see that there was something going on, but I just, no, I'm fine. I was too scared because the threats before were like, here, harm my family members, like my dad, here, do it discreetly, where I'd never be able to tell people that it was him that done it, you know, and things like that. And it is scary, and it is really daunting when you're in that situation. I mean, it was bad enough when I lost my little boy. That was just beyond, you know, imaginable. But in my head, I was still petrified to walk away from him because
So,
I didn't know what was going to happen.
yeah, that's it. It's the unknown, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there must have been people around you who noticed the abuse, who saw
No, because
it.
I didn't see them. He stopped me from seeing all my friends. I didn't go to see my family. I was lucky if I saw my family once every 3 months. And I just used to make excuses that I was busy working and things like that. So my family wouldn't like start saying, oh, you know, blah, blah, blah. So they just thought, you know, that we were busy traveling and doing things, but which we wasn't. And I never saw none of my friends.
Yeah. And
It
that's
was only
one of,
that one friend, wasn't it, that come and rescued me because she knew something was wrong eventually. But
yeah.
apart from that, no.
Well, it only takes one to save you, basically. And that's why I said
Yeah,
it's so important to start talking to your friends about
yeah.
what's going on. Um,
The good thing nowadays, you've got internet, you've got ways of reaching people. Back then, I never, because I didn't have a mobile phone then. I didn't have one. I didn't have anything like that. So, you know, because I was only 20 then, so we didn't have them. They
mhm.
just had these, probably did have these big mobile, you'd had to have money to have one. So I never had no other way of communicating
Yeah.
by a telephone box. And he was watching me everywhere I went. He was with me, so I couldn't even go and do that.
Yeah, and then we get back to the whole controlling aspect of making sure you don't talk to other people, that you say the right things. Uh,
Wasn't allowed to work, wasn't allowed to have a job. I had to stay at home.
yeah,
And
that's
he
what
used
I
to
mean.
lock and he used to lock my front door when he went out, so I was locked indoors.
Yeah.
I couldn't go out.
And
Um,
that's when you know something is wrong, and the question still remains, whenever people are visiting you, whenever you have the opportunity to go out, what can you do in order to contact other people and to let them something know. So I've been watching ER just recently, and of course they have their fair share of trauma and people who are being abused. And what I noticed about the doctors over there is if you somehow give them a hint, like I don't want my better half in the room, in this case the worst half, that they usually find a way because
Way
they
of
are
dealing.
trained.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I mean, like in America, I like it in America on their buses as well. You could hand the driver a notice and saying, "I need help," and things like that. You know what I mean? Things, and I mean, I probably could have. There could have been probably loads of ways that I could have reached out, even to a shop, to a person working in a shop. I could have easily written a note and just put it on the counter with my name, address, saying, "Look, you know." But you don't think of that at the time, you know. You don't think of it to do that. And obviously back then, as I said, it was so much harder. Whereas nowadays, you've got more of an opportunity to get away. There's so much more, and the police really deal with it now. You know, whereas when I was young, it wasn't still a law then. You know, it wasn't a law where they could just go in and arrest them. So they never used to do that. So it was like, you know, it was hard. It was harder back then. But nowadays, you've got more of an opportunity to get the help, reach out, even if you have to take a note with you if you're going out shopping with them in a superstore. Just if you look at someone and you think, yes, that person looks, you know, at a till or working in this, just slip them that note, just, you know, and make them aware. You look at them so they can see you, so they can recognize who you are next time you come in or whatever, like, you know, and they can be more aware of what's going on with people. Help. There is more. But as I said, it's easier said than done because when you're in that situation, sometimes you're too scared to do anything
Yeah, and
because
that's the
it's the
whole.
threats. Yeah, and that's the whole thing because it's the threats that they give you.
Yeah, it's the fear. So
Yeah,
when you have children, then maybe you can run, but what if your children stay behind?
exactly. When you've got children, it's harder because you want them to be with you. As you said, you run. What about your kids? I could never run away from my kids. If I'd had kids, I'd, I'd have to try and get them with me. I would never have walked away and left my kids there. Never. Not in a million years. No way. No
Okay.
matter how much the abuse, I could not walk away from my kids. No.
So what I've noticed from talks to other people is, especially narcissistic parents, they are very good at, especially when it's a father and a boy, in manipulating the other one, as in, um, like they're sharing their own little secrets, and as a
Mm.
result, um, the truth doesn't come out between what's happening to mom and dad, or when we're talking about girls, and of course this is true for boys as well, that they want to protect their mom from what's happening to their dad. And please note that it's not always the men who are abusive. There are women who are just as abusive.
Oh, yes.
And that's even harder because people don't believe that women
That
can
women can
be
do it.
abusive.
Yeah. And they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing: when it comes to children, um, the question is, what do they see? What do they notice? How does it influence them? We already talked a little bit about it, but there is this. I mean, either they probably want to protect the other one, or they see what's going on and they adopt a certain mindset. but them not being able to protect the parents they love, and probably they love both of them even, and that's maybe even worse
Mm.
because um, then you have one who's being abused, whether physically or mentally or both, and then there's the other one who's the abuser. And what if you cannot believe that the one who is the narcissist who is doing the abuse is actually doing something wrong?
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that that exists. I don't know. Have you ever heard about anything like that? Because I did.
Uh, I have heard certain things because obviously when I did eventually get away, I did start talking online. Once we used to get computers, I did start talking to a few people, that had been through things as well. And it's just like some of the children, it is hard sometimes for a child because they love both their parents. And especially when the children there, but they don't actually see, they can hear the roaring, the shouting, and the screaming, but they can't see what's going on inside. So when it comes to the child thinking, oh my God, mum wants to take me or dad wants to take me, like, oh my God, but I love them both. What do I do? And they don't realise it's evil, that it's one of them parents are the narcissist, but they don't realise. So it's hard for that child to come to terms with when the mum blames the dad or the dad's blaming the mum, saying, no, he started, no, she started it. And the kids are like, whoa, what do I do? They're put in a situation where they find it hard because they love both their parents, and who are they going to believe?
Yeah.
You
What
know?
I've noticed from people who are in their current relationships dealing with narcissistic partners, it's usually not one. Usually there are several until, of course, the pattern is recognized. And I got this
Yeah.
question: Why does this keep happening to me? Why? And I said at some point, well, what have you experienced? You have seen your parents doing this dance of don't just let him. He's tired, whatever it was. They were
Yeah.
tap dancing. The one was tap dancing around the other one, and they they have accepted that as a normal reality. And as a result, when everyone raises their voice, like you said, you can hear it through the walls. It's like, oh, I need to let the other one be. I'm just going to disappear. And as a result, what I've seen is that they usually end up with those charming partners. You
Mm.
somehow can sniff out like, hey, you are that one who wants, because when we talk about people pleasers, what you start doing when you are on the receiving end is you do everything just to make sure that the other one doesn't get upset. I mean, you can
Yeah.
try and say, no, I'm not going to do it. But at some point, you are likely to go do it because of the fear and the threats. Uh, but when you actually do it, then you show the children that it's okay to be a people pleaser. And the chances are that the children actually have that same way of acting towards other ones. Oh, someone is shouting. Okay, let's be the people pleaser. Let's do everything to calm them down.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the hardest thing. And you have been in a few repetitive relationships, right? Before
Yeah.
Keith came along.
Yeah.
Good guy.
Yeah. Good guy. Yeah. I mean, after I managed to get away from him, it took a while, but I did meet my oldest to his dad. Um, he was an okay guy. He never ever touched me or was never like nothing like that. It was just a normal relationship, but we just sort of grew apart from each other. You know, um, we split up, and obviously I was left with my two, on my own, and I had a lot going on because that's when I had lump taken out my breast. Um, I had other things going on, and he, the only thing with him that he never bothered with the children. I used to get them ready on a Friday, and they were only young, and he would never turn up. So I had both my kids crying because why isn't Daddy here? And I used to have to make so many excuses, and then in the end, I just told him the truth. I just told him the truth. I said he just doesn't want to turn up because I couldn't keep lying anymore because it wasn't fair on them. They needed to know the truth, and I couldn't keep making up excuses. And I said to them, I said, look, you need to speak to your dad. You need to ask him yourself. I mean, they were only young, but I thought, I'm not going to sit there and put him down because at the end of the day, that's not for me to do for them. They need to find out themselves who their father is. So they never had a really good relationship with their dad, unfortunately. It's only recently in the last, how old's Violet? Violet's 3, nearly 4. So in the last 5 years, Taylor, my Hades, nothing to do with his father. Nothing to do with their father at all. Doesn't want nothing to do with their father. Their relationship's been very, very hard because when my Hades nearly died and he was in hospital, his dad didn't even bother turning up to see him. And they were 16 at the time. So they were aware, they had their own knowledge, And they said to me, you know what, Mum? That's not my dad. That's my dad. And that's Keith. Because he'd been with them from the age of 4, and Taylor was 4, and Hades was 6.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically done the job that their father should have done. And that's why they had so much respect for Keith, because he was the one that was there for them. He was the one that treated them when they were sick, or if they fell over, or they hurt themselves. He was there, and it should have been their dad, but it wasn't. So, and as you know, my Hades has got a lot of issues with mental issues, obviously because he'd seen me have a breakdown when he was 5, and obviously that's affected him because seeing your mum, 5-year-old, having to look after his mum, cook his own meals at 5. Do you know what I mean? That's a lot to deal with for a child. So that's mentally trauma as it is. And obviously going through all that with his dad not turning up, then his dad not bothering, his dad not turning up to hospital. So that's affected his whole mental health. He's literally,
The child cannot be a child. It has to be an
no,
adult.
yeah,
Which of course is heartbreaking, and it's
mm,
not capable of understanding what's going on.
nope,
And it cannot be a child at all, and that always breaks up at some point, one or another in life, that they learn,
yeah,
that they need to learn how to deal with not having been able to be a child,
mm-hmm,
having been able to be playful. And yeah,
yeah,
it's literally traumatizing, and it takes a while for people to actually see, like, hey, well, maybe I was a little bit younger. A lot of people, I mean, it's normal that we don't know our first 3, 4 maybe a little bit longer years. Um, I mean, between 0 and 7, we are still developing our ratio and all. But there are actually people out there who miss their timeline, maybe up till 11 or 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That actually says something, because you know that something has happened which was too traumatizing, and your brain started to protect you from,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, that whole part. So yeah, there's I mean, the question of course is this passed on from generation to generation because of genes? I'm not sure if it's in the genes, but I
No,
do
I
know.
yeah, I don't think it's in the genes. I think it's just the trauma from when you're a child. It's what you
Yeah,
witnessed.
and seeing it and copying that
Yeah.
behavior, storing it as normal. I think that that's the thing. So that's why you see it being repeated from generation up till the next generation.
It's like my niece, um, my sister's daughter. She's now transgender. She wants to be a boy. She really like closed herself in and everything. Obviously, due to what happened to my sister. It's totally. You know, I don't know. It really did change her mental ability so much. Um, she doesn't. She keeps herself to herself. She doesn't go out much. She doesn't. Because of the trauma, it's obviously done so much damage to her, and it's just completely changed her whole life,
Yeah,
or his life now. It's he now.
yeah. And maybe that's because it's safer. You don't know why it is the way it is. So if
Mm,
we go to some warning signs, especially first to children and then the adults. So people or children not being comfortable in who they are, and getting addictions like food addictions, starting drinking at a young age,
yeah,
when
drugs
they
and yeah,
drugs, all those things.
tattoos. You generally find a lot of people that are covered in tattoos have had a very hard life because
Yeah,
it's
they
a
basically want to
thing.
protect themselves,
Yeah,
whether it's in a
yeah.
way of fat or in tattoos. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised when you say one is transgender, that it might be because they actually feel safer if they
Well,
can protect themselves.
my Hades is now. My Hades is a them and a they.
Hmm.
They 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 don't have a gender now.
Yeah,
It's just trauma, and they're Hades now. And that's the way they want to be.
yeah,
And that's it.
and that's
Just
okay.
that's right.
Yeah,
Because
as
that's
long
their
as
way.
it,
That's probably their safe haven of how they feel, and it is traumatized from being traumatized from a child,
yeah.
and it does. It makes affects their lives. It's hard.
So to talk about some other things which you might notice, or maybe not, because hiding is one of those things people are expert in, especially when you've learned by watching your parents that they don't speak the truth to one another. So nowadays cutting is it for years
Yeah,
actually now,
yeah,
and kids are still doing it.
yeah.
So
Unfortunately,
and the thing I want to say actually is, um, when you notice something, or something happens at school, maybe you are a teacher, maybe you are the mom or the dad of a friend who comes to play over. When you see something and you see a change in behavior,
yeah. It could be
figure
anything.
out.
Yeah. Even your own child, if they used to do something they used to enjoy, and all of a sudden they just lost interest and they want to stay in their room, they don't want to talk. They're like anything like that, that's a sign straight away that
Winning the
there's
battle,
something
of
wrong.
course, is known,
Yeah,
but getting anger issues, not listening
yeah,
anymore,
yeah. And
fighting it
that
through.
is a sign. That is a big sign. See, I was lucky. I saw the signs of mine. Excuse me. You know, so and so many people, parents don't. They just think, oh, just a teenager growing up. Oh, they get over it. No, it's not.
Yeah,
It's not just a teenager. There's issues there. Things are wrong. They could be being bullied at school, and things like that. And
yeah. And
and kids are too frightened.
talking about bullies, if you as a child um, are neglected in what way or another, and you don't feel safe at home, chances are that you actually become the bully at school
Yeah, because
because it's a
their
power
anger.
play.
Yeah, and because they've got so much anger, because they can't take it out on the parents at home,
Yeah,
they take it out on people at
yeah, it's
school.
about control.
Yeah, yeah. You generally find bullies are the ones that are being bullied at home.
Yeah,
Majority of them, not
yeah,
all of them, but majority of them, you can say that they are being bullied at home. So they do it because that's their way of dealing with the anger that they've got. So they take it out on the weakest. They prey on the weakest. They find out who it is and think, yeah, I can get that. And
yeah.
so they let
And
their anger out.
so kids are experts at hiding things because at some level they know it's not okay. And of course, they see it because that's something the parents are doing. But now let's go back to the people. I mean, when you're assaulted, I know there are locations on the body where people are less likely to see it. But then again, when you go to the hospital enough, then someone probably will wake up and say, hey, what's going on? So, of course, there are the more obvious bruises, like broken cheekbone or, when your eye is black and blue. But there are also the somewhat hidden ones. And then, of course, there are people who use makeup to
Mm-hmm.
reveal what's going on. So, have you ever hidden it, or did people ask about it and you just were like, nah?
Oh yeah, plenty of times I used to hide it a lot. Makeup. Um, a few times I remember once we went out and 4 nights before he'd punched me in the eye, so I had like a bruise here, and I just said, "Oh, I was drunk and fell over." I just used the excuse that I was drunk, and they'll all be laughing, going, "Oh, you silly fool," blah blah blah, because they didn't have an inkling that anything would have been going on,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
now that you say so, there's a danger to saying I was the one I tripped over, because once the partner, the dominant partner, is the one like, oh yeah, she's always clumsy, then they
Yeah,
won't believe you anymore because he is making you small. He's making you like you are less of a person because you are always doing the stupid things. So it's not only telling it to you in private, but then the person starts doing it in public. And I do believe that's one of the reasons why people don't notice it anymore, because
yeah,
they automatically they repeat it just like children can repeat it, like oh yeah, no, mom is a slob and mom doesn't know how to do this, that, and the other, and mom is so stupid, because that's what they've been imprinted.
yeah,
so
yeah,
so I believe there's a danger to actually taking the blame on yourself,
yeah.
whereas it's the fault of the other. So do you believe that people should be able to poke a hole through that lie or what you're saying, or do you become so inventive and persuasive that none other will ever figure out, like, oh my god, something was actually wrong over there and I didn't
Yeah.
see it?
Obviously, if you're somewhere like that and that person who does it to you is sitting there. Obviously, you can't sit there and go, well, he did it, because of the fear of what's going to happen if they sit there and say that. So it's, you could sort of like just joke about it, go, yeah, I just tripped over, you know what I'm like, and then sort of like, you could sort of give one a certain look as if to say like, well, follow me, I'm going to the toilet, and they could sort of, something like that, if they're out in company and, and they're weary, and because the partner's there, they can always just, there's always certain looks you can give someone, and then just sort of like roll your eyes as if say like, and then get up, go to the toilet. I'm just going to, and
Yeah,
then that
let's
one
go
will sort
walk
of
the
think,
dog.
yeah,
Just
like,
the two
and
of
the other one
us.
could think, yeah, and then do you know what I mean? And then they could sort of do it in a way and say to them, say, look, this is going on, but don't make a scene now, but I need some help through the week to try and get me, things like that. I mean, there is ways of doing it. There is loads of ways you can, but as I said, it depends on the actual person herself if they've got the courage to do it.
And the trust.
Because,
The trust.
yeah,
Who
and
do you
exactly,
trust?
because how do you know they're not going to go, oh God, she's saying that he's beating her up, and then they go and talk to him, go, oh, she said that she was beating her up, blah blah blah, and then you get another beating. This is the thing. It is trust. It's who you can trust to
Yeah.
tell. It's
And
not easy for anyone.
yeah, so it's kind of difficult when you are in a relationship and you have mutual friends. So the mutual friends start when you are having a relationship, because who is going to believe you and who is
Yeah,
not? But especially when it comes to your own family and your friends who knew you from back in the days, they should know better because they know who you were. Although a lot of them tend to forget. Oh yeah, now you say so. Yeah, you used to be very different.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, I mean, if you've got a best friend that you've known for years, I mean, they should really pick up on it, like mine did. I
Hmm.
was lucky, you know. Um,
So how did she see it? How did she recognize it?
well, she always, because we used to go out together all the time, and obviously when I met him, when I first started going out, it was fine. I used to still go out, and then all of a sudden it sort of come to a dead halt.
Yeah, so that's warning sign
And
number one. They want to
exactly,
take you away from all the other people. So they tell you, oh,
yeah,
your friends are so bad, or you don't want to go there. So they take
yeah,
everything out of proportion.
everything out of, yep. So that stopped, and normally when it was either my birthday or one of my friends, we'd like all get together around each other's house, and we'd do like drinks, and we'd have presents. Well, every time someone had a birthday, I used to use the excuse that I couldn't do it. Like he was late, and I was working late and things like that. And that was another thing that I stopped doing. And whenever they said they'd be round, they used to knock. But he used to sit me in the front and put his hand over my mouth and say, "Shh, don't talk," as though we're not in. So they'd knock, but no one's in.
Hmm.
So and because I remember one time one of my friends knocked, and I went to get up. So he pushed me back down on the seat, put his hand over my mouth, and then when they went, he took a light bulb out of the ceiling, which was boiling hot, and stuck it on my neck, just for the sake of, because I was going to get up and open the door. That's the type of things that he used to do.
Hmm.
It was like, you know, basically warning me, do it again.
And that's it.
If I
What's
opened the door,
next?
what's next? So, it's like things like, and it came to, he was, he had to do this 12-hour shift, and he had no way out. He had to. It's like, But what he didn't know was a week before, I'd actually got a key cut. I'd actually done plasticine and got an imprint of the key so I could go out. But I had to be careful because obviously they had cameras in the building and I didn't know whether he would check them. But I'd had a key cut because he used to lock me in. And
How did you get that idea?
I think it was from a film. I was watching a film. What film was it? It was some sort of film I was watching. And I remember him going, it was like some escape thing. And they had plasticine, like, and they put the key on it. And then it's an imprint and you can go and get it cut. Because obviously you have to be careful because people were like, oh no, you're dodgy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I went to get it key cut, the person that worked in it, I knew his wife. And I was telling her about, like, you know, I said, oh, I need to get away from him. You know, would your husband be able to cut this key? I said, because he's locking the door. And she went, yeah, okay. So she said, look, she gave me a number. She said, look, if it gets too bad, just give us a ring and we'll be over. She said, because my husband will kill him. She said, if he finds out what's going on here. I said, yeah, okay. And I thought, I didn't, because I was thinking, oh my God, if he kills him and then it's, you know, that he's going to go to prison or he's going to be arrested. So that even makes you more fearful. You're like, oh, I can't. So they got the key done for me. She posted it from my letterbox. And it was on a Friday. It was 3 days before Valentine's. It was on a Friday, and I'm sitting there, and it was about 12 o'clock midday, and the doorbell rung. So I'm creeping to the door to see it was, and it was my friend Sally. And I could hear her. She went, I know you're in there. She said, let me in now. And I was like, oh, here we go. So, and prior to that, that was when I'd been out of hospital for a week. I'd had all my broken ribs. And I didn't want to open the door because I didn't want her to see me. So I've opened the door and she stood there. She's gone, oh my fucking God. That's all that come out of her mouth. Excuse the French. Excuse the language. She opened the door, took me into front and she went, what are you doing? She said, how long has this been going on? And I was just like, you know, when you just can't talk, you're like, your head's like, and I was frightened. I kept thinking, oh my God, he's going to come back. She went, let him come back. She said, let him walk through the door. She said, because I'm telling you now, he puts a foot through that door. She said, I will smack him straight in the mouth. She said, no way. So she called her other half and Paul come with his little band thing. And he walked in, he went, did he do that to you? And I put my head down, he went, he's not getting away with this. He said, no way, he's not getting away with this. He said, who the hell does he think he is? He said, he treats a woman like that. And then obviously she see my little thing on the mantelpiece of the baby. She went, you was pregnant? I went, yeah. She said, I was eight months. And she went, well, where's the baby? I said, he died. She went, you what? She went, you went through all that on your own. I went, I had no choice. She went, you did have a choice. She said, I know you might not have seen it, she said, but you did. She said, you knew. Your family would have been here like a flash. She said, I know. And then I explained to her the fear and what he threatened me with. And her other half said, look, you can't blame her. If someone's threatening you like that, that sticks in your head. He said, yeah, don't terrorize her for that. That's not her fault.
But let's repeat it once more. You knew that someone would have been there in a flash.
Yeah. Been my dad. My dad would have been there like a flash. But because of the threats he said about hurting my dad, I didn't want anything happening to my dad.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't. And that's when he went, right, suitcase. He said, just grab your clothes. He said, you don't need anything from here. He said, we're going. I went, I can't. He said, you're going. He said, you think I'm going to leave you here? He went, you got no chance. He said, put it this way, if I leave you here, he said, I'll be back later with a baseball bat and there'll be nothing left of him. He said,
Yeah.
I'll go to prison for it. I don't care. He said, there's no way are you staying here. And that's when they got my stuff and I left. That was the day I left and never went back.
So what made her knock on the door?
Because she knew something was wrong. She said, because every time she kept saying to her partner, something ain't right, something's going on. She said, the last 2.5 years, she's not done this, we've not done that, I've not seen her, no birthdays. And we was always close, we was always out and about. We used to go out weekends, like we go away for the weekends, you know, things like that. She said, and all of a sudden, she said, and then she said, I was talking to my mum because I said to her, I said, what made you think? She went, I was talking to my mum. My mum said, something ain't right. She said, for her to disappear like that all that time, she went, nah. She said, she sounds like she's been abused. She said, and that's when I went, right, I'm going up there. She said,
Yeah.
and I just did. And as I said, to be honest, if she hadn't, I don't think I'd be here now telling this story. I'd be
Yeah.
like my sister, 6 foot under.
Okay, let's repeat that sentence again for those who have missed it. You would be like your sister.
6 foot under.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it doesn't always have to end happily. And
No.
happily is still relative, um, because, well, first of all, there are those who can't deal with what has been going on, so they
Mm-hmm.
might commit suicide after all.
Yeah.
And then there are those who, well, we spent quite some time with one another, also in the flesh, as in daily life, not on the phone. And there's a big difference between you and I. And it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of fun actually to see you change, because you have an imprint where you are scared of certain things that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
think you noticed that a lot, didn't you?
yeah,
I
but
did say to you.
yeah. So I'm going to go fast forward and take you to that moment that we were in London. So that was the second time that we saw one another. And
Yeah.
there was this drunk guy, and he tried to basically run me over. And well, my
Yeah.
balance, of course, isn't okay. And before I knew it, I just stopped him.
But yeah, I was like, oh my God.
So what did you think?
I was scared for you because, you know, I didn't know if he'd had a knife on him or anything. You know what I mean? He could have lashed a knife to you or stabbed you. And I was like, oh my God. Because, like, you never know, especially in London, you know, in places like that. It's like, you know,
Well, I
I was
come from
like,
a
oh
big
my God.
city, right, where people
Yeah.
do occasionally shoot one another, stab one another.
Yeah.
It's.
And it was like, oh my God. I think I was more frightened there than I was when I was in Chicago. I felt safer in Chicago than I did there, to be honest.
Well, I
Um,
have to say that
yeah,
I actually felt the least safe when I was in Paris, with a guy
yeah,
following me, because I couldn't really tell the people what was going on. I mean, I talked to some people and they would look at me, and my French isn't that good that when I'm in a hesitant situation I can say something, so I would do it in English. And it was a crowded area, and
yeah,
he literally would block other people so I could pass through. And I was like, yeah, I didn't ask you to walk with me, and I didn't ask you to stop people, and I certainly didn't ask you to smack people in the face just because you
no,
wanted me to pass on. So they could see from my whole demeanor, like, I didn't ask this. But no one in their mind came, thought about that this is wrong. And that was the whole problem of it all. It was, I I'm not going to say I was scared, but I knew I need to be careful. So
Yeah.
my way is, I've got eyes in the back of my head. I always say so because I'm always aware of what might going on. Don't be mistaken. I'm just not scared. That's the whole difference. But I'm very, very cautious. So the moment I got into the hotel, I made sure he couldn't see the code. And then I went up and I said to the one behind the counter, be aware. I know there's someone waiting downstairs and he's waiting and watching till I come down. And he went down and indeed he still was there. But it was, but when you look at the differences between how you, because of what you have experienced and what I have experienced. So, yeah, I have been bullied. I've been almost strangled to death, being choked. But because I went to jujitsu and I've always been very strong because I went to go and do fitness. I know that I can defend myself. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean, I mean, not always mentally, but physically. Even though I'm not that big, I mean, when I was in my early 20s, I remember going to the gym, getting back out, and there was this guy who was this much bigger than I was, came out of the bushes and tried to grab me and pull me into those bushes. So I started shouting and screaming, and of course, no one heard it but him and I. But he did let go of me. So he asked me very kindly, "Would you please calm down, quieten down?" And I was like, "No way, I'm not going to shut up." And then because I kept moving around, he ran away. So I did learn that I do know how to defend myself. Having said that, I was a bit surprised with what happened in London. But what I thought was so amazing to see was how you started changing as well, especially in Chicago. I noticed that somehow it rubbed off on you.
Yeah.
So you were less scared at some point to do
Yeah, I
certain
did sort
things.
of. Yeah, I was, especially when I walked that night
Yeah,
past midnight, wasn't it? All down the
yeah,
streets of not of all places, Chicago. I didn't think I'd do that, and I actually did. I felt quite proud of myself. Actually, I was like,
yeah,
"Oh my god, I literally done that! I've never ever thought I'd do that." That was
yeah.
really like, because I
And
felt comfortable. I think, and I felt safe. And I know, like people say about the place and that, but I just don't know. I just felt, okay, and I wanted
well,
to
it
do it.
depends on where you are, of course, but
Yeah, and
that
I wanted to
close.
do
We
it for
were all good
myself.
then. Yeah,
I
but you
wanted to
did
do it
it.
for myself. Yeah,
I remember that first night that I went to the grocery store and you were like, "Oh my God, when is she coming back?" Or well, second night because first night you weren't there yet. Um, but that second night that you were like, "Oh no, is this going to be okay?" And then later on you did it yourself, and I cannot tell you how proud I was of you for doing so. I mean, you took that step to
mm.
go there and just walk down the street, do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I was quite shocked that I'd done it. And when I got back, I was thinking, did I just do that?
Yeah,
Did I really just walk down all the way down there and then all the way back again? I was like, oh, I
yeah,
think I did. And it was like about 12:30, midnight. And it was like
yeah,
nearly 1 o'clock. I was like, oh. And when I got there, it was shut. I was like,
yeah,
oh, that's not good. I went all the way down there and your McDonald's was closed. Ugh.
yeah.
But yeah, so it was,
And I think that's the thing that's so important to remember, that despite everything that has happened, if you at some point say stop, then you do come out stronger. Of course, the whole thing when it comes to stop, there it's loaded. It's loaded. I
mm,
mean, um, when when they, of course, the question, of course, is can they do something physically to you, get to talk to other people, other friends, and, get their revenge. Or it might be more subtle that, especially when you're in a tiny village, they start spreading all these rumors and all these lies because, especially when we talk about narcissists, they want to be right. They're never wrong.
Mm.
They can't
No.
say they're sorry. So they'll make it all about you and how you were the one and you did everything. Uh, and again, I even do believe that they do believe it, and they're sometimes their reach, especially when it involves family members, can that reach can be really spread it far away. But even then, when they seem to be pulling all your friends and family members into their claws, weaving a web around you where you have no one left, that moment that you decide enough is enough and I'm going to go continue on my own, and I know I shouldn't be believing any of this. I am good enough. I am worth living. I know I do good
Yeah.
things. When you can do it, and usually that happens when you start talking to people, to friends, to coaches, to therapists, but when you do so, you do come out stronger. And you've come out stronger. So, is there anything you want to share about being the strong one?
Yeah. I think there's always help out there. Start talking to people once you get out of this situation. Start believing in yourself first before anything. Believe in yourself that you can do this. You are a strong person. You've just gone through a bad patch, but you're strong. You're going to fight it and start loving yourself, because loving yourself is more important than anything.
Yeah.
You've got to learn to love yourself before you can love anybody else. You've got
Yes.
to learn. You know, obviously, I know if you have children, you love your kids endlessly, but you've got to learn to love yourself before others,
Yeah. And that's
to get
so,
that courage back. Yeah, because that will make you stronger, and that will give you power. Just every day, look in the mirror and say, you know what? I look really lovely today. I'm going to go for it. Even if you go out for a walk, just walk down the shop, just to feel that, knowing you're not in that trapped environment anymore. You haven't got that threat hanging over you, and you know that you can walk into a shop, you can say hello to a stranger, talk to a man because your ex was abusive and you wasn't allowed to, or if you're talk to a woman and the woman was abusive and you couldn't talk to a woman, just hello, just make conversation. Go in a cafe, say hello, you know, it will brighten up your day. It will make you feel that little bit more confident, bit by bit by bit.
yeah.
I mean, I still have issues, as you know, by when we was in Chicago, when it was like going up to when the crew and, I mean, things like that. I was still like, well, still find it hard to, I find it, oh no, it's not a good situation to do that. No, you can't do that. No, as you know, that's what I'm still like. I still deal with issues like that. It's
Oh,
not
how many
easy.
times you try to pull me back?
Yeah, yeah, it's just obviously because of what happened before. It's just, and don't get me wrong, I've still got issues and I always will have issues. Um, but obviously meeting you online, I would never have thought of going to Chicago. I'd never gone to Chicago. I would have been like, someone said to me if I hadn't met you, I'd be like, no thanks. I ain't going there. No chance. Do you know what I mean? I would never even think of it. Like, no matter how much I love Jason, to see him, nah, you're right. Nah. I would never do anything like that. I never ever thought I'd ever in my lifetime speak online about my issues, about growing up, being molested as a child, growing up into abusive relationship, you know what I mean, and things like that, and losing a child, and I never ever thought that I would ever do that, and it's, it's You just
It
got to take it
helps
day by
people.
day.
It's
You
helped
know?
people when you are talking about it because they're not on their own. But I also
No.
believe it has helped you by expressing
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, once you start talking about it, and like as I said, I used to talk to counsellors and that, but I never always felt comfortable. I still never trusted them. I still had a trust issue. I still do have quite a lot of trust issues in people. I'm still very wary. Um, I'm like, um, once you do start talking, it does make you feel that bit more. Oh, that felt good to talk about that, because when you've done that, had like the first time I spoke to you on air live, after I was like, do you know what? If that's going to help one person, one, that's a good job. I've done a good job.
Yeah,
I've done my deed for the day.
yeah.
Someone's going to get help by listening, you know?
And from one, it actually has an effect that
Yeah,
more people are being helped. It starts with
yeah,
one, but
exactly.
there's, yeah,
Yeah. And it does, and it makes you feel that bit, oh, maybe I am doing something right, maybe it is good to talk about things. It's, yeah, and it does help,
yeah. I think
definitely.
you're very courageous and brave to be on here. And I also want to emphasize that maybe it's still not easy. And I know that you're still dealing with a lot of anxiety because of that trauma and also other ones. But I also see the change in you. And I know you bring hope to other people. And um,
Yeah,
and that's you are making a difference being here. And just I think the mere fact that you know that you are making a difference already helps you with your self-esteem, because no
yeah,
way that ex-partner of yours, I don't know if he even deserves the title of partner, would have
yeah.
told you that you would make a difference for the better.
Mm, that's right.
But you do.
Mm,
So I
mm.
want to say
Thank you.
thank you. And I want to say to people who are watching this, if you know someone or you see the signs, and I know you don't want to wrongfully accuse other people, but talk to the people and ask about it. And you yourself, if you are in a relationship which is not okay, take a notebook, write it all down. I mean, if you do it on your phone, use the secret code so it's blocked. So, yeah, I know they check everything, but maybe they cannot check that one thing. But write it somewhere down, stash it, hide it, and collect evidence. Collect all the evidence and make sure there's a backup somewhere. And remember, schools, doctors, police, go online, go to support groups.
Yeah.
Strangers, like Joe said, go to the supermarket. Maybe it's someone, a
That you
clerk
talk to
somewhere.
regular, say hello, yeah. Someone you see regular there, just
Yeah. Have your
go,
escape plan. Make sure that you have little notes that you can give to other people. And start confiding in someone. Start somewhere. And your partner can't be there 24/7. You must try. He probably is trying to be there 24/7 and also following you. But even say, for instance, when you go to school, you can do something. Say put something in the backpack. Make sure that your teacher sees this. It's those little things. There, especially when we're talking about the phone, there's always the possibility to call 911. But make sure that you do reach out to people, that you learn to speak up, because you can wonder if staying won't hurt you more in the long run, and not just you but also others involved. And I bet you that probably will be the truth, that it won't end that well unless someone puts a hold to it.
Yeah.
So do know there are a lot of support groups out there, and even if you have escaped and you are still dealing with the pain, the internal pain, don't flee into drugs or into
No.
heavy smoking, or well, smoking is one thing but that's not healthy, into drinking, anything to numb yourself, cutting. Don't do it. um, Go and find help, talk to people. And when you say I don't have the money to talk to someone, there's always a place you can go to help you out. But don't let those demons get the better of you. Once you're
No,
out,
that's right.
make sure
Yeah.
you get stronger again, and that you can get to enjoy life one ray of sunshine at a time, maybe one petal of a flower at a time. Um, but talk to other people, and that's why it's so important to speak up and speak out. And if there's something you want to discuss, just reach out to either Joe or to me. You can do it here on YouTube. You can do it on Facebook. You can do it on Instagram. Lady Lexi Speaks Up,
Yeah.
and just say I'm in a bad situation, and then we'll know. And you know, online we are able to figure out where you need to go to locally. And of course there are the few exceptions in the world where things cannot be changed that easily. Not saying that this is an easy process, because it isn't. It's the hardest process. It's the hardest steps you
Hardest.
have to
Yeah.
take.
It's going to take a long while. It's not easy. And I'm
Yeah,
going to be truthful. It's not easy. It is going to be very hard and a long road, but you will get through it. I
yeah,
got through it. You know, I got the help. I took the help. Unlike my sister, she never, and unfortunately, she was murdered by her partner because he was abusive. And I don't want anyone to go through that. It's not nice. So please reach out, no matter where you are, reach out to anyone. There is always someone out there. You know, it can be done. Just say to yourself, I'm strong. I'm going to get through this. I'm strong and I can do it. There
yes,
is a way out.
yeah. One step at a time. And
Yeah.
be proud of yourself when you do.
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
don't
Be
believe in
very
yourself
proud.
anymore, just tell yourself, I'm worth it.
Yeah. You are worth it because you're put on this planet for a reason. So we're all worth it. Everybody's worth it. You
Yeah.
know?
Thank you for watching. If you need help, let us know. And
Yeah.
please
I'm always to
remember,
talk. I would love to talk to anyone who's,
yeah. And if you have questions about these things or things you want us to talk about, let us know as well.
yeah.